She had interviewed 7 men before him, and she had turned away every one. Not because they were unqualified. 3 of them were qualified enough. She had turned them away because in each case there was a thing she could not name that was wrong, some quality of the situation that she stood in her own kitchen afterward and tried to identify, and could not. And so she had told herself she was being too particular, and had written to the county land office asking them to post the notice again. The notice said, "Capable ranch hand wanted. Holt County, year-round position, fair wage, housing provided. Inquire at the Sutter Creek property. Ask for Mrs. Cole." What the notice did not say was, "I have been running this place alone for 3 years, and I am doing it adequately, and adequately is not the same as well, and I know the difference." What it did not say was, "The house has 4 rooms, and I use 1.5 of them, and the rest have the quality of rooms that are waiting for something." What it did not say was anything true. Because a woman advertising for a ranch hand in Holt County, Nebraska, in the autumn of 1880 did not put true things in a notice. She put what was needed and left the rest unwritten. She was 34 years old. Her name was Alice Cole, and she had been a widow for 3 years. And the 3 years had taught her a great deal about what a woman could do alone, and rather less than she wanted to know about why doing it alone should be the permanent arrangement. Martin Cole had died of pneumonia in the winter of their 4th year, swiftly, the way pneumonia went when it settled deep in the chest and the weather would not moderate. He had been a good man and a fair partner, and she had loved him in the practical, durable way of a person who builds something real with another person and knows the value of what they have built. When he died, she had grieved him properly, and then she had gotten up and gone to work. Because the ranch did not stop requiring attention, because she had stopped wanting to give it, she had 120 acres, a sound barn, a working well, 31 head of cattle, 4 horses, and a kitchen garden that she had expanded every spring because it gave her something to tend that was not machinery and did not require being lifted. She had the root cellar Martin had dug the first winter, and the smokehouse he had built the second, and the fence lines that were mostly right except for the east corner post, which had been wrong since he set it, and which she had been compensating for ever since. She had the 4-room house, with its 2 inhabited rooms, and its 2 quiet ones. She had all of this, and she managed all of it, and some days the managing was enough and some days it was not, and she had learned to tell the difference between those days by the middle of the 1st year and to plan accordingly. What she had not figured out how to plan for was the particular quality of a house that had room in it for more than 1 person and only 1 person in it. She was not sentimental about this. She named it plainly to herself. In the dark of the evenings, the ranch needed 2 capable people working it, and she was one. That was the practical fact. The other facts were hers, and she kept them to herself. She was standing on the porch when the wagon came up the road. She saw the man first, his posture, his hat, the way he handled the reins with the relaxed competence of someone who had been doing it since before he had to think about it. Then she saw the small figure bundled beside him on the seat, cocooned against the October cold, with a hat too large for her head that had been tied under the chin with a piece of twine to keep it from going with the wind. Alice stood on the porch and watched them come through the gate, and something shifted in her chest in a way she did not examine. She waited. His name was Reed Sutter, which was not a name she expected, Sutter being the name on the deed of the property her husband had bought, and which she had gone on calling the Sutter Creek place out of habit and because she had never thought to call it anything else. He told her his name at the gate, and she told him hers, and neither of them said anything about the coincidence of the name, because it was a coincidence, and naming it would have given it weight it had not earned. He was perhaps 36, perhaps a year older or younger, with the kind of face that weather and work had settled into something that would not change much further. His hands, when he opened the gate latch, were the hands she had learned to look for first. The specific wear of a man who worked cattle, the heel of the palm, the particular callus at the base of the index finger that came from daily rope work. He had a daughter. She climbed down from the wagon before he had finished tying the team, with the practiced independence of a child accustomed to managing herself, and she stood in the yard and looked at the ranch with the frank, cataloging attention of someone who has been brought to a great many places and knows how to assess them quickly. She was perhaps 7 years old. She had her father's coloring and her father's way of taking stock of things before committing to an opinion. "This is Wren," Reed said. Alice looked at the girl. "Hello, Wren." Wren looked at her, at the house, at the barn visible behind it, at the 2 horses in the nearer pasture. "You've got a gray. Papa says grays are hard to shoe." "They can be," Alice said. "This one's not bad." Wren received this information and filed it. "Come in," Alice said. "I'll put coffee on." She had learned, by the 7th interview, to ask her questions plainly and early, and to listen to what a man answered and what he did not, and to trust what she heard in the space between. She had 3 questions she asked every man who came. What had he done, and where? What could he not do that she might need? And did he have anything that would prevent him from working the full year? The 3rd question was the one that mattered. A seasonal hand was worse than no hand, because a seasonal hand left in April and took the knowledge of the operation with him. She needed someone who understood that this place was not a stopping point. She asked Reed the first question, and he answered it the same way the best men always answered it. Specifically, without inflation, with enough detail to be verifiable. He had worked cattle operations in Missouri and Iowa, had been his own foreman on a combined outfit outside of Sioux City for 4 years before his wife died and the owner sold the land and everything contracted. He knew cattle, knew fence, knew the machinery of a working ranch from the waterline to the winter pasture rotation, and he said all of this in the flat, accurate tone of a man who has done what he claims and does not need to dress it up. She asked the second question. He thought about it. She respected the thinking. The previous 7 had not thought, and he said he was not a strong hand with a wood lathe, and if she had machinery work that needed finished carpentry, he was not the man for it, but anything structural he could manage. She asked the 3rd question. He looked at her steadily. No, nothing that would prevent it. He paused. The kind of pause that has a word at the end of it. Wren would need schooling. The arrangement would need to include that. "There's a school in town," Alice said. 4 miles. "There's a horse in the barn that's suitable for a child." Something in his face adjusted. Not relief exactly. The thing that comes before relief when a man has been holding himself ready for the answer to go wrong, and it has not. Wren, who had been sitting at the end of the table with a cup of water and her hat still on, tilted on her head where the twine had pushed it, looked from her father to Alice with the bright, measuring attention of a child who understood more of this conversation than the adults were accounting for. "What's the horse's name?" Wren said. "Clover," Alice said. Wren considered this. That's a good name for a horse that goes to school. Alice looked at her for a moment. Then she looked at Reed. He was watching his daughter with an expression that contained several things at once: the reflexive attention of a father who is always monitoring, the particular quality of helplessness a man feels when a child he loves does something disarming in a moment of consequence, and underneath both of these, something quieter and more careful that she did not try to name. She looked down at her coffee cup. She had been about to tell him the wage and the terms and ask if he needed time to consider. She had the words assembled. She had given the same words in the same order to the 7 men before him. She opened her mouth. What came out was not those words. I don't need a hand. I need a family. The kitchen went very still. She heard what she had said. She felt it land, in the room, with the specific and irretrievable quality of a thing said aloud that had been unspoken for a long time, too long and at too much cost, and now it was out and there was nothing to be done about it. The 7 men before him rose in her mind briefly, and she understood, in the same moment she had said the thing, why she had turned each of them away. They were hands. She had known, without the knowledge being available to her in words until this second, that a hand was not what she needed. She did not look up from her coffee cup. The kitchen was quiet, except for the stove and the wind that had been at the eaves all morning, and Wren, who made no sound at all, which was the loudest thing in the room. Reed Sutter did not say anything for long enough that she had to look up. He was very still. Not the stillness of a man who has been surprised. She could read surprise, and this was not it. It was the stillness of a man who has heard something that requires the full of his attention and is giving it that. He was the kind of man she was coming to understand, who did not make a sound when he was thinking. He simply became very present, the way a room becomes present when the wind outside stops and you can hear the house itself. She looked at him and held it because she was not a woman who looked away from things she had done, even the ones she wished she could undo. I apologize. That was not what I don't. She stopped. He looked at his hands on the table. He looked at Wren, who was looking at Alice with the clear, settled attention of a child in whom something has been confirmed that she had been carrying as a question for a while and was glad to have answered. My wife died 2 years ago. Fever, in the spring. It was fast. He said it plainly, the way a man says a thing he has had to say many times and the practice has made portable without making it lighter. I have been looking for work that does not require me to leave Wren with someone else's family. That is the whole of what I have been looking for. He paused. I have been in 9 counties in 2 years. Alice looked at him. 9 counties. Yes, she thought about 9 counties in 2 years with a child on the seat beside you. She thought about Wren's hat tied down with twine against the October wind, and the way the girl had climbed down from the wagon before he had finished tying the team, with the self-sufficient ease of a child who has learned not to wait to be helped because waiting slows things down and things are always moving. What happened to the 8th county? The corner of his mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. It was the acknowledgement of a man who has noticed that she counted. Flooding on the Loop River. The operation we were with lost 2 winter pastures. It was no one's fault. And the others. Before that. He looked at her steadily. She had not planned to ask this and he had not planned to answer it, and they both understood, she thought, that it was the actual interview now, not the questions she had asked the 7 men before him, but the real one underneath. The first was seasonal work that ended. I did not know it was seasonal when I took it. The second was a good outfit, but the owner sold in the spring, and the new owner had his own people. The third, he paused. The third I left. The man I worked for was not a man I wanted Wren near. He said this quietly and without elaboration, and she did not ask for any. She nodded. Flooding on the Loop. That was the 8th. Yes, she thought about this. About a man who had made the right call each time, left when he should leave, stayed when he could stay, arrived here in October with his daughter and his wagon already loaded because he had done his arithmetic before he knocked on her gate. She thought about 9 counties and what they cost in the currency of a child who had to keep starting over, packing the box of rocks and the bird's nest and the book, learning a new place and then leaving it. She nodded. The kitchen was still. Outside, Through the window she could see the near pasture, and the 2 horses and the gray that was not bad to shoe, and the fence line on the east side that needed 3 posts replaced before the ground froze, which she had been intending to do herself this week. The east fence needs work. I saw it coming up the road. 3 posts, maybe 4. The corner post looks like it's been healed over a season. 2 seasons. My husband said it wrong to begin with, and I've been compensating. He looked at the window. At the fence. It'll be easier to reset it right than to keep compensating. I know that. I've known it for 2 seasons. He looked at her. She looked back. There was something in the looking that was honest in a way neither of them had planned for. The frankness of 2 people who have both been compensating for things for a long time and recognize the pattern in each other. The housing. You said housing provided. There's a foreman's house east of the barn. 2 rooms. Sound roof. The stove needs a new flue collar, but it draws well enough. I can fit a flue collar. I thought you might. Wren put her cup down on the table. She looked at Alice with the expression she'd had since the words had come out, the one that meant she had taken something in and was holding it. Is there room in the foreman's house for my things? Wren said. I have a box. Alice looked at the girl. What's in the box? Wren considered whether to say. Rocks finally, and a bird's nest, and a book. Then you'll need the shelf over the window in the back room, Alice said. It's the right size. Wren nodded. Settled the way a child nods when a decision has been made and she is confirming that she understands the terms. Alice looked at Reed. He had been watching this exchange with the expression she had seen when Wren said the thing about the horse's name. Several things at once. The father's attention, the quality of helplessness, and underneath it, the quieter thing. Except the quieter thing was not as quiet now as it had been, and she could see it more clearly, and what it was a man looking at the thing he had been driving across 9 counties trying to find, and finding it in a kitchen in Holt County in October, while his daughter negotiated shelf space for her rocks. He looked at Alice. The wage you named in the notice is what I'll pay. I want to work the full year. That was your condition, and it's mine too. Then we're agreed on that. He was quiet for a moment. He looked at his hands, and then at the window, and then at her, and the careful, weathered face had something in it that was not yet what it would become, but was on its way there. Something in the process of opening, the way ground opens in the first warmth after a long winter, not all at once, but with intent. Mrs. Cole, she waited. What you said. A few minutes ago, she held his eyes. I understood what you meant. I want you to know I understood it. She did not say anything. She did not need to. She was a woman who had learned to let a thing be what it was without glossing it. And this was a thing that needed to be itself without her adding to it. Wren, without looking away from Alice, go see if the gray will take a hand. Wren looked at her father. She looked at Alice. She got down from her chair and went out without a word, her boots on the kitchen floor, and then the porch step, and then the yard, and the door settled behind her. Alice heard her in the yard a moment later, talking to the horses the way she had talked to the gray on their arrival, low and introductory. The kitchen held the 2 of them. I've been doing this alone for 3 years, Alice said. I'm not easy to work with. I have my way of running things, and it's taken me 3 years to get it right, and I won't have it undone. I wouldn't undo it. I'd work within it until I knew it well enough to be useful. She looked at him. And when I'm useful, I expect to be told. I tell people when their work is good. I'm not one who withholds that. He nodded. The nod of a man who believes this and is noting it as a fact about the person across from him. There's one more thing, Alice said. He waited. What I said before. I need you to know I don't say things I don't mean, and I don't unsay them afterward. I said it because it was true, and I knew it when it came out, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't." She looked at the table and then at him. "I'm also not going to make it into something you're obligated to answer today. You came for a job. The job is yours if you want it. The rest of it will be whatever it becomes, in whatever time it takes." He was quiet for a moment, looking at her with the full, careful attention that was, she understood now, simply his way, the way he had looked at the fence coming up the road, the way he had felt for heat in a horse's leg before anyone had told her he did such things, the way he looked at a problem to understand it before he said a word about it. That's a fair way to put it. It's the only way I know to put things. He moved into the foreman's house the following Friday, 2 days earlier than she had expected, which meant he had been ready to move before he came to ask for the work. She turned this over in her mind on the Friday morning and understood it. A man who arrives at an interview with his daughter and his wagon already loaded is a man who has made up his mind about more than the job. She did not say anything about it. She helped him carry in the larger pieces, the 2 trunks, and the iron-framed bed that had clearly traveled a considerable distance. The joints worn smooth in the way of furniture that has been set up and broken down many times. She showed him the shelf over the window in the back room without explaining why it was the right shelf, and Wren stood in the doorway and looked at it and then went to the wagon and came back with her box and unpacked it item by item onto the shelf with the focused deliberateness of someone establishing a permanent installation. Rocks first, then the bird's nest, careful with it. Then the book. Alice watched from the doorway and said nothing. The east fence took them 3 days, working together in the cold that had settled in for what felt like the duration. He reset the corner post with the level eye of a man for whom the work was so well known it had become instinct, plumbing it, testing it, packing the base in stages rather than all at once, the way you did it when you wanted the thing to last. She held the post without being asked to, and he tamped, and she felt the vibration of it through her palms each time, and did not speak. Because the work didn't need words, and neither of them was a person who supplied them unnecessarily. On the second evening, with the cold coming in blue and serious off the north pasture, she brought coffee out to the fence line, where he was setting the last new post. He took the cup without stopping, held it against his chest while he sighted down the line, drank from it between tamps. She stood in the cold with hers and watched him work. "My husband set that corner wrong because he didn't level the hole before he dropped the post. He knew it was wrong. He said he'd come back and fix it." Reed tamped. Once, twice, he didn't come back. "No," Reed said. He looked at the post, true and solid in the packed ground. "But it's right now." She looked at it. It was right. It had needed to be right for 2 seasons, and now it was. And standing in the cold, she felt something ease in her that had been held taut for longer than the fence had been wrong. She went back to the house and put supper on. When he came in from the barn at dark, he washed at the lean-to basin and dried his hands and came to the kitchen doorway. He looked at the table she had set. 2 places. He had been taking meals at the foreman's house with Wren since he arrived. She had not suggested otherwise, and he had not asked. But Wren had been in and out of the main kitchen all week with the settled ease of a child who has decided that a space belongs to her and is simply waiting for the adults to confirm it, and the shelf in the back room had its proper cargo, and the east fence post was right for the first time in 3 years, and Alice had set 2 places. He looked at the table. He looked at her. "Wren's been here since 3 o'clock. I don't know if you noticed she was gone." From the next room came Wren's voice, reading aloud from the book in the slow, deliberate cadence of a child working at a skill she intends to master. "I noticed," Reed said. He came in and sat down, and she brought the pot from the stove, and the kitchen was warm. And they did not talk much over supper because neither of them needed to. They were married in the spring, before the planting, on a morning that came in clear and windless after a week of rain. The Reverend Stiles came out from town, and the Birch family from the East Road came as witnesses, and Wren stood beside her father in the dress Alice had made her from the blue wool she'd had in the chest since fall. And when the Reverend said the words that made it permanent, Wren took Alice's hand without being asked and held it through the rest of the ceremony with the firm, deliberate grip of a child who has decided where she stands. Alice held on. That evening, after the Reverend and the Birches had gone home and Wren was asleep in the back room of the main house, her things had migrated there by degrees over the winter, one item at a time, until the foreman's house shelf was empty and the window shelf in the back room was full. Alice stood at the kitchen window and looked out at the Sutter Creek land in the spring evening light. Reed came to stand beside her. He did not say anything, and she did not require him to. The east fence ran straight across the near pasture, the new posts holding the line true. The gray was in the pasture, moving slowly along the fence the way horses do at dusk, following some private reasoning. I never asked you. What? When I said it. What you thought. He was quiet for a moment. Outside, the gray moved along the fence, unhurried. I thought that it was the most honest thing anyone had said to me in 2 years. He paused. I thought, this is a woman who doesn't say things she doesn't mean. She looked at the fence. I also thought that Wren was going to climb down from that chair and ask about the shelf within the next 2 minutes, and that if she did it, would save me the trouble of figuring out how to answer you. Alice looked at him. She did it in 1 minute. She's faster than you, Alice said. She's faster than everyone. They stood at the window together in the spring evening, the fence running straight, the gray moving quietly along it, the house full of the sound of a child asleep in the back room. Alice thought about 7 men she had turned away and could not say why. She thought about a notice she had written that did not say any true things, and a woman who had known anyway, before the words came out, what she was actually looking for. She thought about a corner post reset right, plumb and solid, the cold ground packed firm around it. Some things took longer than they should have. Some things, when they were finally right, simply were, and there was no other way to account for them. She left the lamp burning in the window when they went to bed, the same as she always had. The difference now was that it lit a house that held more than one person's waiting, and the waiting was done.